Welcome to the Cam and Joe and Tracy show.
Yeah, there we go.
If this is your first time watching, like, subscribe, hit that button, share it, let people know the good news, keeping up on community. Cameron, how you been, man?
I'm well, man. Happy Friday. How's your week been?
Oh, it's so good.
Yeah.
So, we have the privilege. I've kept secrets.
Yeah.
You don't know this woman.
You've kept secrets
I've
from
kept
me since
secrets
the second
because
grade,
what
Joe.
information she... Well, I've always kept secrets from you.
Yeah, it's true.
Except for my dying love for you, and you've denied me many times.
No,
but,
stop. You know better.
So I have the privilege of getting introduced to you, Tracy Norris.
I want to know all about this.
Her last
Tracy
name
Norris.
is Norris, like Chuck Norris.
I love that.
I literally did Chuck Norris jokes.
As we should. We could do a whole segment post-show.
Not going to do it anymore.
Chuck Norris.
Tracy, how are you this morning?
Doing well. It's been super fun getting to know you this morning.
Yeah, we've
I'm
been
happy you're here.
having fun. So we're going to just start it off. We want to hear about you. So whatever you want to give us some background, you totally can. And then we want to hear more about what you've got, what projects you got coming up, because he doesn't know anything about it.
Right.
So I'm excited. I'm excited for that. I know a little bit.
Yep.
Wow.
So you have the floor.
It's your floor
It's my floor.
or your ceiling. It's your call.
you
There you
know,
go.
we're going to go with floor.
I like floor.
All right. So super excited to hear you kept a secret. I think that's so fun. Let's just put that out there first of all. That's a big deal.
Try
so,
to.
Keep it spicy, right?
Yep.
Good deal. So I had met Joe here in this room just 2 weeks ago, come in to do a filming for a totally separate event, 40 Days for Life. Hey.
Woot.
Right? Got to give those plugs.
Heck yeah.
So here he's filming my granddaughter, who's one of these precious little babies that were saved on the sidewalk, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
She was. And I have the great privilege of adopting her. Adoption should be finalized February 23rd.
That's
So-
amazing.
Wow.
That's got to make you happy, Grandma, to be able to
Wow.
spend time.
Oh my God, we've worked so hard.
Yeah.
It's been 17 court hearings.
Wow.
It has been 4 years of being in court and working so hard just to keep this little girl safe.
Wow.
But praise God,
Yeah,
it's all
for
coming
sure.
to fruition. And I know I'm supposed to be telling that story, but let me just back
Yeah.
it up just a
Sure.
little
No,
bit.
do your
please.
thing. Yeah.
So February 23rd, 2020, my son Marcus, he was in a rehab with Crossroads Community Church,
Mm-hmm.
right? He was living in the Joshua house, and he was in the battle to get his kiddo back. And he was like, Mom, I want you to come to church with me. Right? I'm here.
Let's
Yeah.
do it. Yeah. Go for it.
Absolutely. I want you to meet the pastor's wife because she needs to do a counseling session with you. And
Sure.
I'm like, all right, tell me more. Well, I want to dedicate Alice to the Lord, but I want you to be there with me. And because it's different,
Yeah.
people don't usually have people that aren't parents a part of that process. So since that's different, I want you to come to this counseling session and just see if they agree that you and Dad, my husband Roy, his stepfather,
Yeah.
could be a part of the ceremony, a part of the process. And we're like, sure.
Yeah,
So we
absolutely.
sit down, right?
Yeah.
And we're like going through the counseling and we're vetted, right? We're authorized to stand up with Marcus as he gives his daughter's life to the Lord.
Yeah.
Such a pleasure. So that was February 23rd. And here this last court hearing, they're like finally saying, okay, this is the adoption day. And they're like, February 9th. And my attorney's like, sorry, I can't be there. So judge throws out February 23rd. And it wasn't until I was driving home later that I was like, praise the Lord.
Yeah, for sure.
Because God said, yes, you can stand up here and have this child dedicated and commit to raising her in a godly way.
Yeah.
Right?
For sure.
And then 3 years later, on the very same day, after so much has happened in the middle,
February 23rd,
we'll have
amazing.
February 23rd.
223.
That's
Wow.
right.
You know, that's just incredible.
awesome.
I mean,
I love
I
that.
think that kids need to be with their family, and
Amen.
it's awful.
Yeah.
It's awful when I see a scenario happen where something happens with the parents, and then the grandparents are like, no, and it breaks my heart.
Yeah,
because it's like,
grandparents can't step in, but
yeah,
what an incredible
Yeah.
heart that you have. I love that. I am 10 minutes into getting to know you, and I'm already a huge fan of yours.
Yeah, for sure.
That speaks just volumes on who you are as a person.
Absolutely.
So that is the familiar
Right.
family level of how you are involved. Tell me more from
Yeah.
the regional level how you are involved and plugged in.
Can I get there in just a second?
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
no,
yeah, go for it.
please. Is
Go
there
for the
more?
journey.
No, let's go.
We're going to go on a journey.
Let's go.
Let's
Hey,
go on a journey.
storytellers.
Going on
Come
a
on.
trip.
Let's
my
go.
favorite rocket ship.
So what happens is my son gets out of the Joshua house, right?
Yeah.
And he got out early because, well, I had been given temporary guardianship and he was then given custody, and Alice was in my home, right?
Yeah.
His daughter was no longer in familial care out of
Yeah.
the community.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm coming home. I'm ready. And he had 8 really good months of sobriety and working.
That's awesome. Yeah.
He made some huge, impactful changes, and we're like, oh, yes, praise
Yeah.
God. Things
Sure.
are going in the right trajectory, right?
Absolutely.
And then he fell off. And so he fell back into addiction. And again, now this leg of court hearings, we're working to get custody for my son. It works out. And it was painful and a long process. A lot of tears, a lot of prayers,
Sure, sure.
right? Hard stuff. But eventually, over the next year and a half, he falls deeper and deeper into substance abuse. He goes away to San Francisco for another treatment facility.
Sure.
And he graduated. He came back with his certificate.
Awesome,
We're
yeah.
like, yay! Some people were like, "Ooh, that was just 6 months. It was pretty fast. Are you sure he's ready?" But he did pass away to a fentanyl overdose just 3 weeks later. So, long story short, my story is my journey,
Yeah.
loving and raising an incredible soul
Yeah.
who did give his life to the Lord
Yeah.
on many occasions, who did fall into some pretty severe addiction.
Yeah.
And eventually it was fentanyl that took his life.
That's crazy. I mean, I've heard.
I'm
know-
so sorry for your loss.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Well, you see it on signs everywhere, right? I mean, if you're in any other state, you may not agree with this, but in California, constantly I'll see fentanyl takes lives, fentanyl
Yep.
takes lives, fentanyl takes lives. And you hear about it in third person, you never experience in first person. And it's
Yeah.
it becomes less personal because it's
Yeah.
just a fact. It's
Yeah.
like, oh, you know, hey,
Right.
20% of people die from fentanyl. You're like, oh, wow, that's crazy.
Yeah. 20% of the people I don't know.
Yeah. And then I have no relation to them.
Yeah.
That's not an actual stat, people. That's just me being ridiculous. But
Yeah.
that is,
But it is every 5 minutes. Somebody's dying of an opioid poisoning or overdose,
Yeah.
what have you, right?
Is that,
Every 5
is that
minutes.
nationally?
Yes.
Nationally.
Yes. National.
that's crazy.
Yeah. It's a pandemic, and it needs to have more attention.
Absolutely. And
It needs to have more attention.
So
that
tell us more about where you're going to now. with that,
Yeah.
because I think that'll be encouraging.
Right. So in the last couple of months, I've been able to team up with the Yuba County Fentanyl Task Force and do some work to support their mission, which has
Awesome.
been really cool, tying
That's
back
so
to
cool.
community, right?
Yeah.
Awesome.
How can we help the families in
Yeah.
the Yuba Sutter area
Yeah.
with their grieving process? How can we
Yes.
help them to outsource, get resources, get
Yeah.
more information?
Mm-hmm.
If you know somebody or you love somebody, if somebody in your life is suffering from
Yeah.
an addiction,
Yeah.
what do we do to support you
Yeah.
then? How do we help you as you're helping someone else?
Yeah,
right?
a resource center not just for the individual that is going through addiction, but their loved ones that is trying to have more, hands in the pot. How can I help my brother who is addicted to opioids? How can I help my sister? Or how can I help my best friend? A resource for those individuals.
Yeah.
Is that
So
what that is?
not a center per se. It's a committee of people who are just dedicated to taking some of their personal time, some of their professional time, the
awesome.
resources at their disposal.
Yeah.
And how do we take this, put it all together to serve the community?
Yeah.
Is a big part of that task force. But that's
Yeah.
just like one little piece
Sure.
of the puzzle, because there's so much work to be done. There's so much conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To be had. I think as a mama
Yeah.
who's lost my son, I know for sure that a big piece of my story, people are like, I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you get up. I
Yeah.
don't know how you face the day.
Yeah.
God, let me
Yeah, for
introduce
sure.
you to my best friend.
Yeah.
Right?
Come on.
Because truly, there's no foreseeable way to manage or get through or live through, survive a loss as deep and personal as
Yeah.
your child without the grace of God. And so my personal mission that I feel has been just etched in my soul is just building the kingdom of heaven, one grieving heart at a time. And this is just this little tagline that is in my spirit. Just
Yeah.
how do you go through such deep and significant and profound loss
Yeah.
without saying, this is how I get up?
Yeah.
Well, it makes you question everything.
Absolutely.
I mean, we are, when we don't look at our lives in a selfish way, right? And we start realizing that every action has an equal and opposite reaction, right? Everything that we do affects something else.
Absolutely.
Even the thought of someone going, you know what, I'm going to commit suicide because nobody cares. Okay, what you're doing by doing that, or I'm going to numb myself because nobody cares, fentanyl, or I'm going to do all these other things.
Right.
Those things are rippling out, and those effects are being made, and they affect community in the biggest way. If you can heal the brokenhearted, your community will start to thrive, because now you're taking the people that are hopeless and giving them hope.
Right.
And if you can, I mean, in let's business 101, if you can take your bottom line and decrease it to where you're saving more money, right? You're going to make more money naturally because you're saving more money. If you can get rid of that deficit, you can get rid of that state, you automatically are being, and I would even say you're being the hands and feet of Jesus by doing
100%.
because everything is now elevating into how it's supposed to be.
Right.
Because we're supposed to prosper and be in health. Right?
Amen.
It starts with hope. It starts with hope. If you can, at any one capacity, bring hope to any individual, whether it's the way you live your life or the way you get out and volunteer, or, I mean, taking a buddy's phone call if they're calling at midnight.
Sure.
I mean, because I've had those phone calls. I'm thinking of a buddy of mine that years ago had lost a friend of his. He was living out of state to suicide, and he called me at 1 a.m. I was like, "What's going on?" He called me at 1 a.m, and he was just blubbery mess, could barely make out what he was saying.
Yeah.
But he was doing his best to articulate that his good friend had just taken his life, and he didn't know who to reach out to other than me. So just being available sounds like such a small thing, but being available is everything. And when you can just be a listening ear, if we all, and it comes away from, it's the opposite of selfishness, so it's selflessness. If we could all begin our day with, God, put me in conversation with individuals that are hurting. Let me be a light to them. Let me be you to them.
Absolutely.
You will go through your day and you will start to have, you'll ask for it and you'll get it, and it'll surprise you, and you'll have those conversations.
Right.
And then at the end of the day, you may not even think about it. It may be as easy as seeing somebody. Yesterday, I was at the gym. I was at the racket club yesterday evening. I was working out. I saw this individual on the bench press between sets. He was sitting there, could just kind of head down for like 5 minutes at a time. And I just like went over to him, just kind of bumped his shoulders, like, "You all good, man?" And then he's like, "Oh yeah, I'm good. I'm good. I'm like, "All right, cool."
Yeah.
You think? But I mean, you just don't know.
You have no clue.
You don't know.
Yeah.
You don't know what you don't know. So if you see somebody that is even, I mean, whether that individual was actually having a bad day or maybe he was just getting ready for his next set, whatever it is, if we can just take the time away from ourselves, just to be a little bit of love goes a long way, especially when it's maximized.
Amen.
Your story is incredible.
Yeah.
I am so sorry for your loss.
Yeah.
But the way that you've responded to take such a, I'm thinking of it's your son. I can't help but to think of
No, absolutely.
my 4-year-old.
Right.
I can't help but to think of him as a young man and as an adult, and my daddy heart that wants only good for our children. Right.
Absolutely.
So you watching your son walk through that, I can only imagine that hurt, but your response is so God. It is so only God.
Absolutely.
The only way that something like that makes sense is for it to not make sense naturally. And that is when it is something supernatural, like God's presence in your life. So wow, incredible.
Well, thank you. You spoke about hope, right?
Yeah.
And it's so central to us having purpose, right?
Yeah.
We have to have hope. And I feel like that's a big part of the message is let's give each other hope.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the hard things.
Yeah.
Let's bring out the raw humanity in each other, because what happens, right?
Yeah.
In society is that we're coming around just having these placid conversations. Hi, Joe, I'm Tracy.
Yeah. Everything's surface. No substance.
But when you stop and say to the guy at the gym, right? You okay? You were waiting to really hear an answer. You weren't just being polite, right?
Yeah.
You were ready to hear him out, whatever. And that's the heart of Jesus, right? Let's talk about the hard stuff. Let's talk about the great stuff, and let's laugh and have a good time. Yeah. And we talked earlier just briefly, something that's been on my heart this morning is learning to dance in the rain.
Yeah.
So important, because when you're grieving, when you're working through grief,
Yeah.
there's a piece of you maybe that wants it to be over, but there's a bigger piece of you that is terrified that it would be over, because
Yeah.
when it's over,
Yeah.
you're dealing now with all these feelings of maybe guilt, maybe why is it that I get so focusing on how to give back and how to help others really helps me. So maybe it is a little selfish, but you know what?
No.
No.
No, it's important.
No,
There's
it's-
seasons for everything. Everything
Yeah.
has to have
Yeah.
a beginning, and everything has to have an end. If it didn't
Amen.
have an
Yeah.
end, you would never have learned and grown from it.
Yeah.
And most people that are in a place with broken hearts,
Yeah.
they've never gotten past it. They're
Yeah.
still in that season
Yeah.
because they're, like you were saying, they're afraid to let it go
Yeah.
because they're afraid. They don't know what life would be like now.
And so these feelings, right, that we're talking about right now,
Yeah.
these are the same feelings that lead people down the path that
Yeah.
Absolutely.
eventually
Yeah.
Absolutely.
can lead them to fentanyl and
Yeah.
and toxicity. So
Yeah.
the truth of the matter is that the drug is 100 times more powerful than morphine. That is crazy when you put it into
That's
perspective,
nuts.
isn't it?
Oh my
Or
god.
just that little
Can't
tiny.
even-
At this point in society,
even
everybody's seen
imagine.
the image of the penny with the two little grains, almost
Yeah.
like salt, right?
Yeah.
And that's enough to kill you.
That's
That's so crazy.
working at the hospital for the period.
Mm.
I mean, we would have people coming in and we would say, okay, is this substance abuse? Is this mental disorder? And we would look at the scenario and we were never sure. Like there was always a game. And I say game, it's a sick game, but
Right.
if you're in the medical field, you get it. But you look at that and I would see people with the morphine pump it and they'd be like, oh, I'm starting to feel a little bit better. And I remember when I was in there on the rise, there was something called crocodile teeth was the name. It came from they ended up calling it Russian heroin.
Okay.
And so it was such a high, it was very similar to fentanyl, except it wasn't a pill. It wasn't, it was like heroin, you would inject it. And if they missed the vein, it was so potent, it would eat through the flesh. So if they were going for like their wrist, they would actually stay away from so they would go for fingers. So if they were going for finger and they missed it, their finger would rot off because of how corrosive the medicine was. And so we would come in and you'd have people coming in high as a kite, missing a limb or missing a finger.
Oh my goodness.
And so like that's just to bring the gravitas to this.
Yeah.
And what I had to question when you see things like that and like you experience, you have to question your spirituality. You have to question everything because now everything is in front of you and you're going, what is different from me from that person?
Yes.
Yeah.
What is different? Well, there isn't much of a difference.
Not at
and
all.
when you start really deep diving in, it's like my faith is really my only difference.
Yeah.
And it's people in those seasons. So this is my conviction on it. People in the season not knowing how to get out of it.
Yeah.
And then they're using it to numb themselves.
Yeah.
So that way they don't have to feel
Right.
life
Yeah.
because life is scary. And you know, how many times people, you're going to have to adult today. I don't want to. It's scary.
Yeah.
All right. If that's just paying bills, what happens if all of a sudden you have a moral decline and you do something that you regret? Now you have to live with that regret. No choice is free.
Exactly
100%.
that. Yeah.
And
100%.
so all of a sudden, you know, we see the opioid going up because now people are trying to numb themselves because of the
That's exactly
pain
what it is.
that's in their heart. And the way, you know, and you hit it, the way we fix those things is by coming together, giving our time, finding people that need to have that conversation, not let them get to that point where
Yeah.
they need to numb themselves
Yeah.
Right.
and love them out of that place so they can be exactly who they're supposed to be, who God called them to be.
I think unfortunately so many people think that they're going to be a burden on someone when they're asking how they're doing. So if we can just break the stigma of it's okay to not be okay
Yeah.
by showing the world that we don't have it all together,
Right.
I think it's huge. I think it's huge. Like I love when you'll see like, for instance, like an actor and actress in real life being extremely human.
Yeah.
Because then it's like, oh, okay, they're not just always on this pedestal. So if we can do that
Yeah.
in our own lives, in our own community,
Right.
even around our circle of friends, but allow people to see us with our guards down, like, hey, no, like we all have our own struggles. Like I'm a doubter. Like since I was little, anything that I feel like I'm about to do, I do not think it's going to go as well
Right.
Sure.
as it can,
Yeah.
or I'll say as well as God allows it to eventually turn out.
Absolutely.
But that's just me. That's something that I
Yeah.
have always struggled with. So I always need people around me, like, and encourage me, like, Cam, no, you got this. You can do it. You can do it. You can
Affirming
do it. Affirmation, right? But so many of us go through life tiptoeing around even some of our, and it may even be harder for a best friend.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because then you're not wanting to be vulnerable because they know everything about you.
This is true.
Right?
Yep.
So how can we,
Yeah.
and as a community, establish places where you can bring your yuck, that you can bring your, hey, these are the kind of thoughts I have.
Yeah.
Because the second you can't, it's not social media. I don't believe it is, because the second you put something like that out there, people can be vicious, right?
I think social media pulls out the fantasy. If you see something that you're glorifying in your mind previously and you see it, and it kind of gives you that dopamine hit, it's you going, oh, wow, okay. And then when you meditate on that, what you meditate, you become.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
right, I see that being the case.
Yeah.
And I agree with you. As a society, we do need to change that. So what are positive things that we can do? Because you're saying, you got this task force together. You're, hey, we're going to be doing this. We've been working on a list of getting all the places where people can serve in our community. And even if it's 5 minutes of time that you have to have a conversation with somebody that's broken, we want to be able to set that up.
So one of the things that we are currently working on is March 6th is Black Balloon Day. So that's a overdose awareness day, right? It's taking a moment just to release some balloons and be like, hey, we recognize that this is a thing.
Yeah.
So this year and like we had done with the tree lighting ceremony back in December, we did first annual. So flash forward, the 6th of March, first annual, right? We're hoping that this is an ongoing thing. It's something we can continue to do.
Yeah.
Community-wide Black Balloon event. And
Love it.
so we're going to have the kind of a mixed bag on the social thing, because we're going to do the physical event, but we're also going to do a media push where we're going to put black balloons all across Yuba Sutter. You're going to see them for the whole month of March with hashtag options and a place to just really honor whichever person. Maybe you know somebody like me, right? Mine would be Marcus Forever 27, because that was my boy. So people will use it to honor, use it just to show support, maybe more general. The school districts are on board, so you'll be seeing them in the high schools and the junior highs, which really that's where media matters, right?
Yeah.
Media is huge.
100%.
Well, if you can stop them from ever going that road,
exactly,
then you don't have to worry about it.
Right.
My mom told me,
100%.
because I remember questioning her. I mean, I've been offered a lot of drugs, okay, and that's not a prideful thing. I apparently have that face. They're like,
sorry,
you
Joe.
seem nice. Thanks, Cameron.
My
Since
bad.
second grade, buddy. I don't even know how you got that. So,
J&R Boga.
Oh, Lord.
oh, that's funny. So I remember my mom, she told me a story. She's like, I asked her, I was like, why are drugs bad? I remember being 13. I was like, we hear all these signs, we see all these things that say drugs are bad. I said, the Bible doesn't say drugs are bad. It doesn't just outright say drugs are bad. Right? And I'm a 13-year-old boy, so there's no filter. As much as like teenagers are scary, it's the puberty, like junior hires. That's the most terrifying group. And I was that. And I was just like, hey, why? And so she told me a very vulnerable story about her neighbor. She grew up in the hippie movement.
Okay.
Right? And so the hippie movement was everyone was acid and weed. That was what everyone was doing. And so my mom's like, well, you know,
One love.
right? She's like, yeah, man. There's hippie pictures of my mom, and I think it's the funniest thing ever.
Awesome.
So she looks like a flower child.
I could see it.
Oh, absolutely. So she tells me, she's like, I stopped doing weed after we got some from a guy, and my friend was like, hey, come over later. And she's like, hey, I'm not able to. I got something I got to do. He's like, okay, well, I'll start and just come over afterwards. She found him. He was dead. And it was because someone laced it with something else. And that's why that was the case.
gosh.
And so she told me that, and I could feel the brokenness in that, right? And I could sense it. And I just went, oh, never questioned it again.
Absolutely.
Because it was one of those that was a real scenario. And I think that if we can have those conversations with people at a young age with genuineness, right? They don't need a flag that says drugs are bad, right? Cool, great. They need to have that conversation.
Yeah.
So you and I.
How do you?
Oh.
No. I was just gonna. Don't forget your point. How do we get you?
Yes.
In front of as many people as possible.
Yep.
Truly, because like, you need to be speaking at every elementary school and every junior high in this area.
Yep.
Well, I'm excited to have the conversation literally with anyone who will listen. So that is where my heart is at.
Cool. Yeah.
Having those conversations.
Yep.
Super, super important for me,
Yeah.
for sure. You spoke to a couple things that, like, all the time you're talking, I'm like, oh yeah. And so I'm really trying to focus.
Sure. Sorry.
No, it's fabulous. Thank you. I love that kind of drive, right?
Mm-hmm.
So when we're thinking about what can we do as a society, this is huge for me because I'm an early learning professional. I've worked with young children my entire career, worked a lot with families. And so thinking about what happens in the life of a young child, right, that impacts who they become over the trajectory of time. One of the things we're seeing is pressed pills, right? DEA put out, I think 2 months ago now, give or take, 7 of 10 pressed pills has fentanyl. Has enough fentanyl to take a life. 7 of 10. What we're doing in society, though, right? We're let's say we're out. We're not at the mall. We're at church, and I'm like,
Sure.
Joe,
Yeah.
I got a headache. Do you have a Tylenol, right? And you're giving me a Tylenol, but your son sees you giving me a Tylenol.
Yeah.
And so we're socializing that it's okay to share medication. That's so normal. You see it all the time.
Yeah.
You see it. Young children see mom and dad share pills. They see, oh, I've got allergy. Don't worry, I've got a Benadryl, right?
Sure.
Whatever's in the bottom of grandma's purse, right?
Yeah.
That's how we were brought up. And it's not a terrible thing, really.
No.
Yeah.
But it is a terrible thing when children are just retaining. It's okay.
Grab
We're
a pill.
modeling.
Grab a pill,
okay
it's
to
all
take
right.
Pills from
Wow.
other people.
Monkey see, monkey do.
Exactly that.
You'd have
And
never.
so 7 of 10 pressed pills. Your child's 7th grade. Oh my gosh, my head hurts so bad, and I have a test in an hour. And do you happen to have?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, sure I do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And your child is dead.
Wow.
I would have.
I
I would
wouldn't
have never put that together.
No, never.
But this is what we're modeling, and I know it's such a simple thing. I know it's so small, and it's really innocent until it's not.
Yeah.
Until our society is flooded with an influx of pressed pills, and something we really, as parents, as community stakeholders, we all need to be more aware of just how are we socializing that it's okay to share or not share.
Well, I mean, we talked about it on our health. When we were talking about health stuff, and what you mentioned it's like, do for you what a pill could do instead, right? Take care of yourself, find out what your body needs, and give your body your needs. And
For sure.
I think that as a society, it's easier to ignore the problem. I mean, you can see that happening across every element. Ignore the problem, and it eventually, right, will be somebody else's problem.
The southern border.
Right? I mean, everything. It's ignore the problem because it's going to be somebody else's problem, and then I won't have to worry about it.
Right.
When the simple fact, I mean, I never put 2 and 2 together, but being raised, my parents never had aspirin on them. If I had a headache, they'd be like, drink some more water. That was always the rule.
Hey.
Yeah.
And so now my mom's got aspirin on her. She's like, oh, do you have any aspirin? I was like, you want some water?
She's like,
Wait a
how
second.
the tables have turned.
And she's like, oh, or what I'll do is salt. Normally when you have a headache, it's because you don't have enough salt. So
Sodium's low or you're dehydrated.
I keep broth cubes in my car. If I'm like, oh, okay, got any hot water? Boom. So even at the coffee shop, somebody asks for aspirin. I go, hey, you want some broth?
Look at you.
What are you going to do? Oh, well, that'll help. Right.
Awesome.
Those things, though.
I love that.
Because those things are attainable and they're tangible and it's not difficult. I feel like because
It's not a drug.
we're instant gratification.
Yeah, we are.
And
How quickly is this broth going to hit me, Joe?
I need it, man.
Oh my
Trying to navigate around the noodles, bro. Come on.
There's no noodles in the broth. A bouillon.
I'm being
You know
silly.
what? I don't want to hear it. We're having
You know
serious
better, man.
topic. So I
to
agree with you
lighten
though,
it
but I think it's those things. How can we create substitute normalizing?
Yeah.
This
Right.
is my point. Yes.
Instead of it being, here's a pill. What else can we offer you? I haven't. This hurts really, really bad. Okay. Well, have you stretched it out? Did you? Okay, let's take a look at it. Did you put ice or heat on it first? I have an ice pack, instant ice pack.
Can I pray for you?
Right? Can I pray for you? All of those things are 10,000 times better because now you're giving them something tangible that they can do
And teach
instead
them
of something that will maybe substitute it for the period and then hit them later.
Exactly.
So, and I never would have put the
It's
aspirin
so
together.
important.
Same.
Everything,
Same.
everything that we model for them, right?
Yeah.
So here I am, and that's the premise of my book, right? So I've written a book, Shadows of Grief, Losing a Child to the Fentanyl Epidemic and Finding the Strength to Carry On. And so that's going to release March 10th, which would have been my son Marcus's 30th birthday.
Wow.
So I'm holding the release date for his birthday.
Wow.
That is amazing.
March 10th.
Yes.
So
That's the premise of the book, though, is which red flags did I see raising Marcus? What did my life look like, and which things was I doing during this time in our life that might have impacted who he became and what happened ultimately with him? Is there guilt in that? Maybe some. I've had to deal with that on another level, but that's one of the things I speak to even in the introduction is I had to wrestle with self-doubt and with rejection and with self-blame and with guilt and all of these things. They did not serve me well. They did not serve anybody well. What I needed to do is strip that away and really dive into what happened. And here I am raising his daughter now. And which things are going to look different so that I can make sure that she doesn't fall into that fate. And, you know, she still has free will, you guys. Ultimately, that choice is still hers. And that choice belongs to each and every child. What we can do is teach them that they're capable of doing hard things, right?
Absolutely.
You are capable of facing adversity and facing it well.
Yeah.
You're capable of being uncomfortable and even in a really bad mood, because that's just a feeling and it'll go away. So really diving into the way we're bringing up this generation and how those interactions are shaping them into people that are going to be able to withstand adversity when the time comes.
Have you seen the movie Won't You Be My Neighbor?
No, I've never heard of it.
So it's a documentary about Mr. Rogers.
Oh,
And
I love him.
I think that you would really love it. And it connects very well with your point. He actually talks about how children are extremely intelligent.
So
Emotions are intelligent things. You reacting to them, and we treat them like they're dumb.
Yeah.
And he says, and so it shows him sitting down. The reason he even started his show is he was originally going to be a priest, and he went through seminary. He was about to go become a bishop somewhere.
Okay.
And he then watched television. It was a new invention. He turned it on, and all he saw were cartoons of people getting hit with hammers in the head and things blowing up and all this stuff. And he went, this is what we're showing our kids? They imitate that. We're going to have problems.
Yep.
So he went to the local station and said, I've got a little puppet. Let me just do something. So he did it, and you can watch it. It's 20 minutes of him with his little hand puppet doing a voice, Daniel Tiger,
Oh,
and he's
love
just
him.
talking. And then all of a sudden, they're like, the ratings were through the roof. What did you do? And so it turned into something, and it became, and all of the things he talked about were dealing with grief. And one of the last episodes he did was actually when 9/11 hit. He came back because people were like, we don't know how to talk to our kids about it. He's like, well, let me do it. And that was the last episode he did, was coming back going, this is bad. Bad people are going to do bad things. Right? And he just explained it so eloquently, but so perfectly to a child. And I think that is so important to your point. The kids are seeing what we're doing. They're seeing, but they're so smart. It's easy for us to be like, you'll understand when you're older. It's like, oh no, they're older. No, they get it.
They'll understand right now. How can you speak in a language that they can digest?
Yep.
And that's on us.
Absolutely.
And that's on us to be able to do.
It really is.
Well, they actually say in the most intelligent concepts, if can't be explained to a 5-year-old, aren't that smart.
I really love that. I love that a lot.
Yeah.
Because if you then you truly don't understand it. If you can't break it down into the simplest form to a 5-year-old,
you don't know it yourself.
Then you genuinely don't know, and you're touting a line for somebody else.
I just read that literally yesterday. I love that.
Oh, it's so good.
I love that. If you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, you don't know it enough.
No. And that's the same thing about health. Well, why should I be healthy? Well, because it's an adult thing. If you're stumbling, and that's a challenge to me, like I'll even do with my kids. I'm like, Dad doesn't know everything. I don't know this. Let's find out together, and we'll read it together and be like, do you know what that means? Okay, that means this, and we'll break it down, because I want them to know that Dad is learning still.
Yeah.
We think that not knowing something is weakness.
No.
When actually not knowing something is a huge strength, because now you have the opportunity to learn something new and to overcome that. And if we can teach our kids learning something new, right? Learn from the mistakes that Dad made. I tell them stories. Dad made this mistake. Learn from this. You're going to make your own mistakes. Don't get mad at yourself, right? Having those conversations.
Learning process.
And that's what you're doing. I mean, you're pretty much calling up all society. Hey, the idea that you think that giving out these pills because you've got a headache is okay. What are the kids seeing? That is allowing this process to continue. Even I'm like, holy crap, that makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Never would have thought about it.
And I think too that people just need to really keep paired with that thought is 7 of 10.
Yeah.
7 of 10 press pills. And how easy is it to know, did you get every one of those from Walgreens? Are you sure they came from a still? No.
No, you have no
7
clue.
No.
of 10. 7 of 10.
Wow.
So both concepts are super powerful, but I think together,
Yes.
profound, right? Huge. I love what you were just saying about your interactions with your children. And I love it because you're not saying that you know everything.
Yeah.
And I love hearing parents say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, it's okay. It's okay to be wrong.
Yeah.
And it's okay to make a mistake because you're going to. And you're going to get mad and you're going to have to come back and say, yeah, I didn't handle that well. But as a society, it's really hard.
Yeah.
Humility is not our strength.
No.
So
No.
Well, there's a lot out of our control. And when something's out of our control and we don't know how to take care of it, we get mad at it. It's like, oh, I don't know and I'm scared. And normally, and fear, the first thing we bring up is anger. And we allow anger to be our first resolve when that is not how it should be. It should be, I don't know what's going on. Let me take a minute. Let me take a breath.
Right.
Okay. I mean, imagine at the gym, I bet you somebody didn't understand the machine. You probably told them, get off it, take a minute, take a breath, take a look at it, and reassess.
Yeah.
In a state of an emergency, we don't know what to do. Airplanes coming down. We could get in an accident. And put a mask over yourself, put a mask over your child. Take a deep breath, make sure everything's okay, and then pursue. It's because we're so quick in society all the time. We never take a moment to process the day. We don't process the day, then we don't process the week, then we don't process the month.
Right.
And next thing you know.
Then all of a sudden you're like, why am I so angry? Oh, I haven't actually sat down and processed any of my emotions that
Right.
I've dealt with at all.
And so you're a guy who was exposed to some substance abuse as a young kid, and this is your coping mechanism. And
Absolutely.
albeit I'm a Christian, I go to church, I serve the Lord, I serve the community, sometimes those are the triggers that pull people back. And so taking the time just to process our own feelings and to teach our children to process theirs is huge.
That's incredible.
It's huge.
It's a big conversation.
So your book comes out March 10th.
It does.
What's the title of it again?
Shadows of Grief.
Shadows of Grief. Do you have any place that you're doing any reads or
was just
anything
gonna
when it
ask.
comes out?
You know, I need to set that up.
So, so on March, she's going to be reading at Steelhouse Coffee about it. And we're going to do a late night. We'll do a whole book party for you. We'd love to host you. That'd be absolutely amazing because
That would be awesome.
it is important.
Thank
and we
you.
do need to do that. And if you don't have a place, gosh, I've got a place. Let's go.
Yep. Yep.
I don't get speechless lately. But
There you go.
There you go. We have a
no,
spot.
thank you.
We have
Absolutely.
we have a spot.
That's incredible.
I'm thinking back to what you said about every 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Every 5 minutes. And again, we were talking about this the other week when we were chatting with Frank South with Rest. When you just talk about, okay, this individual is experiencing homelessness, and you just say the word, and it's not a person.
Yeah.
When you say every 5 minutes, you're just like, okay, yeah, that's another stat.
Yeah, exactly.
When that every 5 minutes becomes Marcus.
Yes.
Man.
When every 5
Yeah.
When
minutes
every
is
5 minutes
child.
it becomes the Sarah or the Kyle or the Marcus or the insert the name of the individual, that's when the bomb goes off. That's when it lands. That's when it's real again.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that is on us individually to love on people. It is on us collectively as a community. If you see someone like the kid that was on the bench press, if you see someone that even may be going through something, humble yourself.
Yeah.
Because you can literally save their life. You don't know. You don't know what, I mean, somebody with the biggest smile across their face could be going through the deepest hurt at that time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if we would just take the time to, hey, how is everything? And that you may never know, maybe when you get to heaven, how many people you were able to save
Right.
just by putting yourself aside and asking, hey, how are you doing?
And
That's the challenge. That's the challenge for the day.
Definitely.
I think a first line of defense is being the one that's willing to say when you're not okay. Because you spoke to that earlier,
Yeah.
right? And you spoke to being the one that stepped out and said, "Are you okay? Or is everything okay?" But really, finding those opportunities within ourselves to say, "No,
Yeah.
No, because it's so much easier for other people, right, to open up after somebody else has already said that the Me Too, right? That whole Me Too movement.
Well,
I'm not okay, and it's okay for you to not be okay.
Well, it's a pride thing. I don't want people to see me at my worst. Because if they see me at my worst, they're going to hold. They're going to think that I'm a weak, broken. I mean, I deal with that as a man, right? It's like constantly. It's like, oh, you can't show vulnerability. If you show vulnerability, it's because you're weak. And it's like, actually, no. I'm showing vulnerability because I know I need strength.
Amen.
And I need that. And so, I mean, the Bible puts it perfectly. Pride comes before a fall. What's the biggest thing we deal with in society is the pride. No, I don't need your help. No, I'm fine. And that's why even we can have all the programs in the world. We could have every shelter available for everything. You can have every government agency paying for all the things, every tax dollar going for it. And people still won't go. And it's because, well, no, I'm fine. I did it once, but I'll never do it again. That was one time. I'm good. And then they keep going with that instead of going to a person going, no, I'm not okay. I thought I could stop. I can't stop. I thought I was okay. I'm not okay. And I really don't know how to get out.
So suicide rates through the roof. Opioid usage through the roof. It is a dark and hurting world. And it is unfortunately when you get to a spot in society where it becomes easier to use a drug or to take your own life than to ask for help because of, I mean, call it like it is. It is a pride thing. Right. The suicide rate, men to women, is almost, I believe, between 3 to 1, almost 4 to 1, because it is that pride thing. I've got it all together. Close the door. I don't have it all together. I'm not going to humble myself enough to reach out for help, or I don't know a channel to ask for help. So I'm going to go and do my own thing. When we can offer, when we can live our lives the way we feel that we need to, and just embody what Christ was all about, which was selflessness, which was service. We're gonna bring people with us organically. We're gonna bring people with us without even having to invite them to come along. Because they're gonna see something about us that's a little different without us saying, hey, this is why I'm different. They're going to see something in us.
Right.
And when we can lead our lives in that way, with that light and that positivity and that inclusiveness, we're going to have gravity to what we do. And we're going to be bringing people out of the storm and into the boat along the way.
Absolutely.
And that's why we're here.
Absolutely.
That is we are built, designed, and created to love people and to bring people to God through how we love them.
Absolutely. All right, Tracy, land the plane. What do we? Where can we find the book when it comes out? March 10th. I know. I'm super excited. Where can we find it?
And March 6th is
Black Balloon Day.
Black Balloon Day.
Yeah, March 6th.
Give me details on that. We'll put balloons up at the coffee shop as well.
Love it.
I can get you introduced to the DBA, and we can find all the local businesses, and we can make sure that they support it as well.
That's incredible. Thank you. Yes. So we'll connect with that after. But Black Balloons will be going out all over the community. March 6th, we're going to do at the Walmart in Linda is where the physical event is going to be. And it's going to be in conjunction with the COPE efforts that are happening there already. And so it'll be a nice blending of just stakeholders throughout the community coming together to say, we see you. Some biodegradable balloons are coming up. So we're going to do the physical act and then the virtual act. Regarding the book, it is going to be out through Amazon. But also on my website. So that's shadowsofgrief.com. Again, Tracy Norris. I am on Facebook as an author. So follow and lots of details to come.
Awesome.
Wow. Thank you so much for giving us a little bit of your time this morning to allow us to get to know you a little bit more. You're an incredible woman. And I know that God is absolutely not done with your story. But cheers to you being able to say yes, step out in faith, and allow God to use the tragedy that you've personally walked through to give him glory and to turn more hearts towards him. That is the mission. Incredible.
That is the mission. Thank you so much for having me, both of you.
Happy to do it. Thank you for checking out the Cam and Joe Show.
If you guys are liking our content so far, you can follow us on Facebook and Instagram. You can also listen to us on Spotify.